and welcome to Mental Health Wellness, a Journey of Healing. My name is Tammy Pozerycki, and I'm the Outpatient Community Liaison for Westboro Behavioral Healthcare Hospital. And my guest today is Marguerite. I'm going to let her tell you about what she does. It is so intriguing. You're going to want to learn more. So I'm going to start off by having you introduce yourself and your company.
Sure. So I'm Marguerite Haugh, which is kind of like hee-haw if you're trying to find out how to pronounce that. And I'm the founder of Core Awakening. My space is out of Chicopee, Mass. And under the Core Awakening umbrella, I'm a licensed mental health counselor. So I meet with some people under that umbrella solely. But I also am a facilitator. It's really specific, called TCTSY, which stands for Trauma-Centered, Trauma-Sensitive Yoga.
Trauma-centered, trauma-sensitive yoga.
Close. Trauma center.
Trauma
The only
center,
reason I kind of
trauma-sensitive.
tweaked that a little bit is because it did originate in Boston at what was then called the Trauma Center.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the concept originated in Boston.
Right.
Oh, this is neat.
Right.
Okay.
And TCTSY, I can't remember how many countries it's in, but it's worldwide at this point, having certified facilitators facilitating trauma-sensitive yoga.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So before we get into that topic, could you tell us a little bit more on how you got here and creating your own business?
Right. There's a lesson in there for me and for a lot of us probably, which is never say never. And I've finally learned not to say that because decades ago, 30-ish years ago, when I was going into the mental health field, I was like, oh, I will never have my own space. I'll never be like my own practice, right? And here I am. But so, my kind of experience has been in the educational field, in the mental health field. I years ago did outreach therapy with families and individuals. So I would go to homes and schools, things like that. And then I shifted to the educational field. So I was what was called a school adjustment counselor. So I worked with the whole building itself, all of the students, but particularly with a focus with those students that were having trouble with kind of social emotional regulation, behavioral situations, And I was loving it. And then there was a situation where I personally was experiencing complex grief. I had lost my father and 8 other people, so 9 people in 7 months.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was not myself, and I could feel it at work. I wasn't able to concentrate. I was in my office sometimes tearing up, having crying situations, things like that. Couldn't focus, wasn't performing like I normally do. And so I decided to name that to my admin at the time. And so I had lost my father in February, so kind of the rest of that academic year, I received a lot of support, anything I needed, couldn't have asked for anything more really. And then the summer, and then I came back and I was still off. I wasn't myself. So I named it. I was like, this is what's going on. And I did, in the moment, receive a lot of support. However, pretty quickly that was taken away. And I was targeted, for 4 years. In front of people, parents, students, things like that. And so then I had PTSD on top of complex grief.
Well, I think it's how can we support you? Let's get on with life. Move on.
There's
right?
definitely an unspoken undertone about that. And you don't really know what it's like until you're in it and living it.
Absolutely.
Of how long grief can really kind of stay within your nervous system. So anyway, I tried to leave that particular environment, and I was offered a position in another town. And I'll remember it always, probably. It was Sunday night, 9 o'clock, and I was told on the phone, "You're a perfect fit." And I felt the same, to have this new experience elsewhere. And then the next morning, I woke up to an email, 11 o'clock Sunday night. So 2 hours later, they rescinded the offer because of a reference check. And it's not legal proof, but I have proof of where that came from. And I literally lost, kind of my soul and my passion of where I really felt like I wanted to be for the rest of my career. And I needed to recreate myself. I literally just could not do that anymore. So kind of my own healing process brought me to what people might consider our typical yoga. And that was helpful, but I knew I didn't want to do that forever. Well, I couldn't do that financially. It's really hard to do it that way. So I just kept reading books, and came across this specific kind of trauma-sensitive yoga. And went to their kind of prerequisite before being accepted into their certification program. And whoa, did it fit, Should I tell you more about the TCTSY right now?
Oh, absolutely,
Okay.
because first of all, I think it's wonderful when people just end up where they're supposed to be. I really do. And I think that you've touched so many people. And as I've witnessed at Westboro Behavioral that we'll talk about, but please open our eyes to Trauma Center, Trauma-Sensitive Yoga.
Yeah, well, there are two founders of it. One is David Emerson, and the other one, I don't know if you've ever heard of Bessel van der Kolk. He wrote The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh, yes, I've read that.
Right? So world-renowned trauma expert and researcher. And so they founded this particular kind of yoga. And it's really based in what research has shown, that trauma resides in the body, not in the event. So it is facilitated in a way where there are a lot of choices and options and invitational language. And by doing that, it provides participants with opportunities to kind of tap into that sense of control and self-empowerment that's taken in trauma, high-stress kinds of situations. So I might offer something, and if you wanted to do something completely different, you could do that, and that's totally okay. So other kinds of traditional type yoga, people's experience might be, oh, you have to do exactly what the teacher is doing. And we're not like that. We don't even use the same language. In place of teacher and student, we say participant and facilitator, because teacher-student can kind of give off, so to speak, a power dynamic.
Right.
Right? So you know everything, I'm learning from you. And TCTSY is we're all in this together. We also don't use the word postures or pose because that can be triggering.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we say like forms or shapes. So I might offer a form, and at any time, for any reason, you can adjust or modify something to what you and your body want in that moment.
I like how you say offer, because I have taken yoga class and just thought that I failed miserably.
Right.
And I think that's for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think for most people, we don't bend like that.
Right, I know, right? Right, and
So
that's the other thing.
Can
right?
you give me an example of something you might offer to a participant?
Right,
just as a little something we can say, oh, I recognize that.
Right. So what I'm offering typically has like a yoga or Sanskrit name to it, but I'm not saying, okay, let's do downward dog.
Okay.
You know, I'm explaining, like, if you would like to, and you can transition however you would like, but one opportunity could be to lean forward, bring contact with your hands to your mat, and then walk your hands. So your hands might be in the front of the mat, you know, your feet might be at the back. So there's no kind of expectation of, oh, that down dog thing, yeah, I know what that looks like, or, oh, I can't do that, you know. So yeah.
That's really cool. I think that's an opportunity for people to just kind of be accepted, not be judged,
right.
and not compete with one
Huge.
another. 'Cause
Right.
that's what I see when I see all these classes.
Yeah.
I see, well, you know, I'm going to be comparing myself
Right.
when, especially the folks that you deal with, are so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us more how I love the word offer. I love the language you're talking about. So tell us a little bit about your business and who you work with, and then I'd love to later dive in to how you're working with the folks at Westboro Behavioral.
Okay.
So.
All right. Yeah. So primarily I'm working with adults approximate like 25 and older. And so in my space, some people come to me solely under the mental health umbrella.
Okay.
And some people come to me solely under the trauma sensitive yoga umbrella. And then for other people, we mix it together. It really depends on session by session. You know,
So your individual mental health piece, is that individual counseling?
yes.
Psychotherapy?
Right.
Okay.
Specifically, I'm in the second year of a 3-year process of learning some, and I won't go off on this because this is a whole other show, but something called somatic experiencing.
Okay.
And with that, the kind of very brief description is it has traditional talk therapy undertones to it, but this give and take back and forth isn't the primary focus. It's how your nervous system is at any moment.
Okay.
And then we manage your nervous system. So some people, yes, come to me solely under that umbrella. Other people yoga, and other people we mix. I also do kind of a variety of events. So sometimes I hold events in my space. I held a day-long women's retreat this July in Westfield, Massachusetts. And I'm in the process of expanding that to 3 different retreats next spring, summer, where it'll be 2-night overnights.
That's exciting.
Yes, right? And it's called Restore, Explore, Ignite.
I love that.
Yes, it was very cool in July. And people asked for more. It'd be great if you did an overnight. And I was like, yes, that's what I was thinking.
That's super.
So, yeah.
That's super. I would love to hear more about that. And we'll definitely have to promote that. And I may attend that. I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So you said in your space. Is it a standalone building? Is it an office?
Oh, I had this dream of having my space in a renovated mill.
Oh, neat.
So it's a renovated mill. It's 720 square feet. It's just enough, big enough to, if I wanted to run, like I can fit 8 to 10 people for like a yoga session. So it's enough for events, and it's cozy enough, I love it, where we're just doing psychotherapy, somatic experiencing. So
That's so exciting.
yeah, so it has one wall that's exposed brick, and the windows are huge, so love it.
It's interesting because as I am the outreach for Westboro and I'm talking about the type of yoga you do, this is going to really help me explain
nice.
it a little.
Yeah,
Because people hear trauma-sensitive yoga, and they automatically say, wow, that's really neat. I've never heard of that.
Oh, cool.
So I don't think a lot of people know about it.
Right. That's very true. I mean, that includes me when I was reading books and came across, I'm like, what is trauma-sensitive yoga?
Right.
You know?
And you mentioned a certification. What was that process like?
Yeah. So it's 9 months. It starts every September and then it ends in April, and it's 300 hours. The first half of the course is looking kind of at a variety of things. We don't dive deep into like the yoga philosophy and things like that. We do kind of a component, a module on ahimsa, which is about doing good and having goodwill and that kind of stuff. So we're not looking at alignment and things like that. There are a lot of modules on trauma and components of trauma and how it can develop and things like that. So that's the first half of the course. And the second half of the course is learning. You have a partner. Mine was online. I'm not sure if they do in person at this point or not, but you have a partner and you practice online, leading the other person in trauma-sensitive yoga.
Do you feel like even now you continue to get better at it? It's practice.
Yes. Yeah. It's so interesting that you say that, because even this week, I can't remember the exact example, but I was saying something and I was like, oh, yes, I could say it that way. Or, yes, I can add this additional bit of information to help people kind of understand why I might say something or offer something,
So when we talk about trauma, it's hard for people to define it, because some people feel that an experience they went through, well, that's not trauma. And I look at it and say, oh, it was absolutely trauma.
Yeah.
And I was telling you before, I would call what I thought was big trauma the big T, and then little trauma, the little t. But then you were mentioning how individual that is, and the perception of a large trauma, a not so large trauma. And so if you could expand on that and sort of talk more about trauma specifically.
Yeah, well, even, I can't remember how long ago this was, but, I came across the description of big T, little t, and I was like, oh, it was just very intriguing to me. And so I kind of started using that phrase. And then the more time went on, I just don't look at it that way, because it's all individualized. What an event that happens, some people may walk away with their nervous system, may walk away with that, having kind of processed through what was brought up for them, what was kind of triggered for them, And other people, their nervous system, that fight, flight, freeze, right? It didn't get to fully process through. So their nervous system might hold it as a big T, and other people, it might be a little t for them. So it's really about how it sits in your body.
Right.
And then how it can get, if it's not discharged, it can sit in there for a lifetime, really, until it is discharged.
I think that's the case in so many people who have developed chronic illness. I think of these horrible things that people go through in terms of physical pain, medical conditions, and so much can be related to the stress and the trauma itself. So for those folks that see you in person in Chicopee, how far do people come to see you? I mean, do they travel?
I did have someone
time?
that was coming from the Boston area,
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Other people, it's, very close by. They often are Googling something like therapist near me. Sometimes people Google, some people start, you mentioned like, oh, that's not a real familiar term, trauma-sensitive yoga, right? It's not. But I feel like it's kind of getting more and more out there. So some people do specifically Google that.
So at Westboro Behavioral Healthcare Hospital, we have, I'm just going to tell our audience what that is. We have inpatient mental health services and we have outpatient. And so the outpatient part of it, people come for the day and they participate in group psychotherapy, group psychoeducation, and then we infuse holistic modalities into that. One of which is Marguerite, who works with our patients on trying to release the trauma. And I just received a call today from one of our referral sources, and it was actually a personal friend. Mm-hmm. And she had said, I'd really like her to go to the program at Westboro. There's a lot of trauma. And when we speak about trauma, we also have a first responder specialized treatment program.
Right.
So our adults are dealing with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, post-traumatic stress disorder. They're dealing with substance use disorder. There's so much.
Right.
So how do you approach these groups? Because they're all different, right? And where you are conducting a group that's made up of so much individual stuff.
Right.
So how do you do that?
So interesting. And then the other component is that it can change week to week,
Yeah.
So my group could be looking like something one week, and then the next week maybe people have left, other people have come. And so I start every day, if there are new people, if other people have, and I've been with them, I don't always give the same discussion, but I start every day with a description of what TCTSY is and how it's facilitated and the goal in facilitating it. So providing people, like I mentioned earlier, with choice and options and self-empowerment. So yes, I work with the first responders, young adults, and adults. And it's always interesting. You never really know how it might sit with people. Some people, and this is one of the so awesome things about this, where they are even at choice to take part, really. So, but if they stay in the room, they benefit from a few things. They benefit from kind of the way that I speak and this calming nature.
You are very calming.
Thank you. They're able to benefit from how I do facilitate it. So it's really awesome when someone starts and I notice that, they might be sitting there. They can, if they're choosing not to do that, they have like therapeutic art they might do. And then perhaps several weeks later, they kind of move over and then kind of start taking part in the yoga, right? So they really benefited from, I'm at choice here. So I even have had some times where everyone in the particular group maybe wasn't participating visually, right? But so everyone might be sitting here like you and I might be the only person standing up offering some forms. So, myself as a facilitator, I really need to be grounded and stay in that and know and remind myself that they're practicing exactly what we're hoping for. Their choice is to experience it in a stillness manner. So.
Well, I know from watching you work with some of the adult groups that I would have never expected some of those adults to participate, and I see them participate.
Right.
And I also want to point out the fact that you've brought them outside to do this.
This is my fave.
And Westboro has such a gorgeous view, and when it's nice weather to take them outside, I think that's so nice.
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap this up, but is there anything that you want the audience to know about Core Awakenings or trauma-centered, trauma-sensitive yoga?
Wow, that's a big question. I guess maybe, if someone was out there watching this thinking, oh, I don't really know, and if they're wondering specifically kind of about me or the TCTSY, and maybe now I'm a connection point, absolutely feel free to reach out to me. I've done all kinds of things. She's
obviously very easy to talk to.
I mean, I've done all kinds of things. I've done Zooms with people, I sometimes will offer a shortened session, like maybe 30 minutes or even 15. I'm so open.
Well, I want to thank you very much
thank you, Tammy,
for coming on and explaining what you do. You really, I can see the benefit that our patients get when they work with you, and I really hope that you're going to stay with us and continue to work with us.
I love it.
Even though it's a little bit of a hike, but so we want to thank you for being, for watching us, and we're going to continue our journey of healing, and we'll see who comes next on Mental Health Wellness, a Journey of Healing. Thank you.